social responsibility, like I told you earlier, does not begin and end with our politicians. Yes, as much or as far as policy is concerned, yes, they get to make, they get to make those discussions, and they get to agree, and they get to bring, the policy into parliament, and it follows the channels that are mandated by our constitution. But more than that, when you look at the headlines that we see, we need to ask, and this is where mine and your responsibility starts.
Yes.
And actually at some point, I believe also this is where we are actually judged by the kind of environment that we run. Mm-hmm. Who has contributed heavily on the nuisance that we are seeing? Who has contributed on the degradation of our environment? You will find that most times it is me and you.
Yes.
And this is where our social responsibility begins. Mm-hmm. How do we dispose, the waste? Mm-hmm. Half of it. It's not uncommon when you see, even in Nairobi, where, the sewer is not provided, we end up throwing, that particular element into our rivers. We are part and parcel of what has gone wrong, and we cannot run away from it. And we've seen it in so many spheres. Just the other day, I saw an old man rebuking a younger fellow along Valley Road.
Yes.
And this old man was asking this young man, "You've just dashed from one side of the road to the other. But young man, there's a bridge provided for you here. What would you say if you were run over by a car?" And it got me thinking. If that young man, God forbid, was run over by a car, would have actually started chastising the driver.
Yes.
Unapeleka gari, unaendesha gari namna gani. But there's a responsibility that the young man has, which was to use the conduit provided, all right, as a safety net. So when we are reading all these stories, and a little bit I'll disagree with my good prof when he talked about, the menace of cancer as a challenge to Kenya, albeit the fact that it is. Cancer now is actually a global dilemma. It is the #1 killer disease in the United States and other great economies. So everybody is grappling to find a solution for cancer. And I don't think we are actually set aside. We are part of this global dilemma. So what must we do? Mm-hmm. What must we take cognizance of so that, as the sophisticates of the 21st century are looking for this cure, that we are part and parcel of that. Mm-hmm. And you see, when we look at all these, the rivers, Makueni, you are looking at Taita, Malindi, it tells you we have a role to play. Mm-hmm. And whether it is coming up with ways of ensuring that these rivers are clean, working hand in hand, with the government to ensure that we play our part, it is what we need to do. So we cannot run away, Debal, from this social responsibility. We must be part and parcel of it.
And of course, we peg our thoughts on the environmental pillar, we peg our thoughts on political pillar, we peg our thoughts on social pillar as well. These are the key components of the Vision 2030.
True.
Remind me also the other pillar, but that is how we can construct our sentences. Are we failed, Barack, when we look at the social responsibility, our environment, look at now Mau Forest as we're heading towards 2022. Now it's a catnip issue with the politicians as well. We remember this also was big in 2007. And environment around degradation, we are losing the beauty, the flora and fauna that Roger Whittaker is singing about as a country. Is it still our land? Do we still, are we grieving as far as when we see all these, amenities that are around us and also the endowment that God has given us diminishing drastically?
It is our land, as we have said, and hope resides in what we try to do, particularly as my brother Herman Manyora has said, with regard to reflections about the future. What kind of country do we want to bequeath to future generations? And borrowing from my brother here, Muduma, and from yourself, I think that which you call social responsibility, I want to vary it a little bit and call it vigilance.
Vigilance.
Eternal vigilance. Societies that thrive are societies where the citizens are vigilant. And vigilance begins with very basic things. When the traffic light turns red, do you cross or do you wait at the traffic light because it has turned red? If the traffic light turns red here on Jomo Kenyatta Avenue and you are waiting, the fellow behind you starts hooting and starts pointing very rude fingers at you. And he will even drive past you and insult you. Where is eternal vigilance? You cannot do that in the streets of London. If you try to beat the traffic lights in London, the other motorists will take you to task. Here, if another motorist takes you to task because you have beaten the traffic light, that motorist is the mad person. He or she is the madman, the mad woman. So it's a question of vigilance. The document which you are handling right now, Ainea Debal,
Yes.
is the Constitution of Kenya. When elections are stolen in the country, it's not because we do not have the laws. The laws do not say that an election will be stolen. The law does not say that the servers will be a mysterious thing that citizens cannot have access to. When our children are raped, the laws do not say that our daughters will be raped. When our rivers are polluted, it's not because we don't have the laws, and the laws do not say that the rivers will be polluted. If you should be driving from here to Nakuru, you're going to be amazed at the number of people, the middle class that Manyora talks about, who are throwing plastic on the roads. They stop somewhere in Naivasha, they buy yogurt, and just to show that they can buy yogurt and they are eating yogurt, they are wakisasa, they are throwing those things left, right, and center. Where is vigilance? We must begin by being vigilant and ensuring that we are playing our role. It does not matter how many more heaps of laws we are going to put in place. I differ slightly with my brother Ahmed here, who says that things look bright. We are about to look at the Constitution with fresh eyes. It cannot possibly be that the Constitution is what is offending us, that each time we have a problem, we say, okay, let us look at the Constitution again. Which part is it that we did not get right?
So we are enticing ourselves into a vicious cycle.
That is in our soul, in this land of Kenya, is what we need to amend.
Right. Hashi, when we look at Article 10, and I think all of you are espousing what truly, is emanating from Article 10 when you talk about eternal vigilance as well. Patriotism. I think even for you who is a driver and you're passing the red lights, you're not being patriotic, right? Patriotism, I think we can break it down to the bare minimum of, of the values as a citizen, you being a patriot. Just maybe to remind Kenyans where it is, it says that the national values and principles of governance include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, and participation of the people, human dignity. It's undignifying when we see still Kenyans drinking from, these water bodies that are full of algae, they're greenish, they're mucky, and unsmelling. And in this epoch of time, is this our land? Is this the land that we should be living in?
Well, the late John Mishuki, whom I admired very much. Now, I used to disagree with him a lot in the past. Cleaned up Nairobi River. He showed leadership. It was the dirtiest river in the county. He took his stick and he made sure that the job was done. What we need to do is to do the job, and to do the job we need the rule of law. The rule of law means that the magistrates, when people break the law, that they should go to jail. Debal, if we have the rule of law implemented, we have great laws in the books, we have great laws in our constitution. What we need is a judicial system that takes people to task, and when you break the law, you should go to jail for it. And I think then the message will be sent out that people have to do things in a way that is consistent with the law. If we're talking about the affluent and your business is closed down, a five-star hotel in Mombasa is closed down, and licenses revoked because of pouring effluent into the ocean, that's called the rule of law. It will mean that everybody else will be scared and not do what they're and do the things that they're supposed to do. Debal, as far as the Constitution is concerned, I'm not sure I said that the Constitution is going to solve our problems, economic problems. I spoke about us having jobs and making sure that we created the wherewithal to produce economically in this country, and that's going to come through integration, free markets, and all these other issues. But the fact of the matter is that we're a tribal, balkanized nation that, has votes in patterns that are tribal. And these are whipped up by the elites who create these paramount chieftaincies in the region. So this constitution that we had last time was the first across the post, and we had groups from certain sections of our society who were in government. And then everybody else was outside government. The reason we want to fix the constitution is not only to make sure that we include everybody at the table of decision making, which is very important, but also to make sure that the system of government that we have is reduced. Because of course, it's the taxpayer who's paying all these things, and we want to make sure that the taxpayer's burden is reduced. And the constitution, as I've said, is an experiment. If we don't experiment with our constitution, we're not going to learn a lot of things about our ways of life. So Debal, my last point is this. We cannot eat the constitution. It's not going to help us in the long run if there are no jobs and if there's no economy to speak of. But the constitution, for the short to the medium term, the changes in this constitution will stop this constant conflict that we have in this society and try and bring people together at the decision-making table.